Salutations once again to the Truth Core, whoever and wherever you may be on the planet. I'm here today, 22nd of April, 2021, to tell you about the operating system of the Great Beast. To begin, I'll do something that is sometimes necessary in teaching, as well as in public discourse. That is to say, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. What I'm going to tell you is all about power. Now, maybe you saw my video, one of the rare videos I've done, where I talked about Gnosticism and shamanism. You can find that on Planetary Tantra, on Nemeta. In that talk, I admitted, quite frankly, that I love power. And I explained what I love about it. Specifically, I'm not talking about power over others or control over others. I use the expression power with others, power sharing. And in fact, power sharing is a short definition of Planetary Tantra. But with whom or what do you share that power? You have power as an individual human animal. And with whom do you share that power? How do you couple your power with another power? That coupling, that dyad, is the root of this practice. One thing, one aspect of Planetary Tantra that makes it so unique and beautiful is that the formula of power sharing goes to the source. So you as an individual can share your power with its source. Where does it come from? You can share your power, the power of your life, with the source that gives you life. That is the simple and elegant proposition I'm presenting here. Now, an essential factor in this power sharing dynamic can be expressed in a single word: scalar. The word scalar refers to the distribution of anything across different scales or frames of reference. So the power of the OS, of the Great Beast, is scalar. So when a Gnostic speaks about the powers operating in the universe, that which brings it into manifestation, then he or she always places power in a scalar arrangement. And that arrangement is not complicated. For instance, Gnostics taught that the fundamental power of the universe at the ground of everything, and this instruction from Gnosticism has many parallels with Hindu tantric cosmology, also called Tantra Shastra. Well, the Gnostic looked first at the ultimate ground power called the originator. So there is only one universe with a capital U. There are no parallel universes. There are parallel worlds, even parallel galaxies within the universe, but there's only one universe. And so the ground power of the universe is the originator. And that is the ultimate source of power. From there, you scale down into the galaxies. Each galaxy is a source or wellspring of power. So the pleroma, the core of a galaxy, is another center of power in the scalar arrangement. Then you come from the galactic core out into the galactic arms. That's where you find planetary systems. And a planet in one of those systems, such as ours, is the immediate and local source of power. So there are two steps in the scalar model to the ultimate power. One, back to the pleroma, and two, to the originator. So in the living gnosis today, we say simply that the Earth, the living planet, is your local source of power. And the Gnostic myth of the fallen goddess describes how the Earth is one part of a three-body system. This is called the trimorphic protonoia. And so the sun and the moon and the Earth are a single body. And in fact, those three bodies are the totality of the Gaian power system. But it so happens, of course, that the immediate access to that system is through the Earth. And then through the Earth, you access the moon and the sun. So the Earth, the ground beneath your feet, is the local source of power. The Earth is the body of the Divine Mother. She gives you birth. She sustains you at every breath. She reabsorbs you when you die. So there you are, a human animal standing on the Earth. And you have certain powers or capacities. You have, first of all, the physical power of your body, of your arms and legs. Then you have mental or intellectual power. You also have psychic powers and the power of imagination. And all those powers are engaged with the Earth, whether you know it or not. So the scalar dimensions of power from the originator through the pleroma down to the Earth beneath your feet, right into your body, translate in a way that you can access them. And because it is a scalar distribution of power, everything that is in the entire system at the different levels is accessible at every level. The question is, how do you access it and how do you handle it? Just asking for a friend. So that being said, let's look again at the details of chapter 13. By the way, I've said that chapter 13 is at the apex of the story arc of the book of Revelation. Actually, the apex is the hinge between chapter 12, which stands on the left side of the triangle, going up, and chapter 13 on the other side of the point, going down to the conclusion. Now, to get what I'll call an inceptive understanding, that is to say, where you begin to understand or learn anything, let's look again at chapter 13. As I argue, as I contend, it contains precise and meticulous details about the operating system of the great beast that could only have been known to a Gnostic. And the same applies today. It is only through the learning and practice of a living Gnostic today that the presence of Gnostic sabotage in the book of Revelation could be detected. It was planted there at that time to be detected now, but it could only be detected by those who have the sufficient or adequate background to do so. There are 18 verses in chapter 13, and that is no accident. And I would also have you note that chapter 11, which I cited specifically verse 7, which describes how the great beast, the interior powers of the earth, will rise up and make war upon the Almighty and those who are in the company of heaven. That is chapter 11. And then when you turn to verse 11 of chapter 13, you have the description of the operating system, which tells you how the beast can do that, how the beast can actually overthrow and defeat the powers of the Almighty Father God. By the way, I must add for clarification, this is of course a religious document, but when I talk about the Almighty Father God, as a Gnostic, I'm not merely referring to that figure in Christian theology. The Almighty Father God is present today in Klaus Schwab. The technocracy that seeks to dominate and run the world using AI is nothing but a late modern iteration of the powers of that Judeo-Christian Father God, whom the Gnostics identified as a demented alien. So is it any wonder that everything you see in the program coming from the global technocrats, the globalist masterminds, appears to be and is actually alien to human life, to the human mind, to society, to the animal world, and to the earth itself? The source of Judeo-Christian theology is alien and extraterrestrial, as is the source of AI technology. Remember that the Gnostic teachers, the initiates who visited the Petrolona cave, took a hand in organizing the chapters and verses, and they did so with careful attention to the numbering. It's no accident that the 18th verse of the 13th chapter says the following: Here is wisdom, the Aeon Sophia, your divine mother, the living planet. Let whoever wakens to her presence compute the number of the beast, for that is also the number of humanity. And that number is 6 plus 6 plus 6. So the number of the beast is the number of the earth and the power of the earth, as well as the number of humanity, not the number of a man, andros, but the number of anthropos, the human species. 666 is the number of humanity in the Gnostic computation. And so it is correct always to add the three ciphers so that you know that that number is 18. And the number 18 identifies the presence of humanity on earth in the same way that a number in the table of elements like hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, in the same way that a number in that table identifies that substance. Everything is material. By the way, as a footnote, I can add that the appearance of the word earth in these verses comes directly from the Greek gamma, epsilon. Now there are two E's in the Greek alphabet. There is eta, which looks like an E, and there is epsilon, which looks like an N with a long leg. Gay. That is the word for earth, which appears repeatedly in these verses. Is there another reference in these verses that refers to this decoding, namely that 18 is the number of humanity? Well, look at the description of the lesser beast. It arises out of the land, compared to the great beast that arises out of the sea. Well, what are the plain facts of human evolution expressed in that distinction? All life comes from the sea. Primordial life comes out of the sea. That reference points you to the source of life, Ge, or Gaia. But human life does not live in the sea or on the sea. It lives on land. So the lamb with two horns comes out of the land. The Greek koine of the New Testament in Revelation says exactly that, ektes geis, out of the earth. We all have two mothers. You have your biological mother, unique to you, as do I. But we also have the same mother, the same divine mother, the living earth. Now, to emphasize once again, and it's not too important to repeat, this passage is coded with precise Gnostic intel. This is the semtex that those initiates placed in the book of Revelation so that those who can read it and know what is there will know that the whole system of Judeo-Christian theocracy contains the seeds of its own destruction. And that passage gives the formula and the procedure to accomplish that destruction and to take down the insane control system of the entire world. Let me again signal you to two exact words in this passage. One is plane, and the other is drakon. So drakon is a word that you find in the Nag Hammadi treatises. And specifically, drakon refers to the draconic or reptilian powers of the alien predators, the archons. So drakon is the archon overlord. And that trope, of course, goes immediately to the popular notion of reptilians and reptilian bloodlines, a lot of which is pure fantasy. But the basic Gnostic intel uses drakon in that way. But Sophrades cued the mad monk to use the word drakon in another sense that is only known to those who can decode it correctly. So in this reference, drakon refers to the reptilian power of the earth, which is known as Maha Kundala, or the great Kundalini, the great coiled serpent power. So the red dragon is an image of the serpent power of the earth, the telluric forces of the infernal world, which Christians and many others regard as hell, the bottomless pit, and they regard it as the habitat of horrible demonic powers. Well, it's nothing of the sort. The interior of the earth is the habitat of the draconic serpent power of the planetary animal mother. And when that serpent power, which consists of a variety or range of different currents, emerges, it emerges in the form of an 18-point field of power, a force field of 18 specific modalities. These are represented in the icon of the great beast. By the way, small correction. In the previous talk, at minute 23, I suggested that the word icon, which is E-I-K-O-N in Greek, means mark. Of course it doesn't. It means image. The word for mark specifically is charagma, and we'll get to that eventually. So the term drakon, read in one way, yes, does refer to the alien archontic powers, which insinuate themselves into the mind of the human races. But in another respect, in this passage, it refers to the power of the aeonic mother herself. The other word, plane, occurs frequently in the Nag Hammadi codices, and it occurs there to describe the insinuating, deviating, and predatory influence of the archons. So actually there are two terms in these verses which Gnostics used routinely. And so Fridays suggests those terms to be used here, but only so that they can be read in another way. So when the passage says that the lesser beast deceives the world and all those who live on earth, you see the word plane, which is the root of the word planet, and it means to go astray, to lead astray. But there's a double meaning here. Does the lesser beast, who handles the power of the great beast, deceive or lead astray the world? Absolutely not. But it does lead the world and the mind of humanity away from the Almighty Father God. It leads away, not astray. This Gnostic twist on a language might seem, I don't know, far-fetched. But in fact, it isn't at all. Such nuances occur often in the use of specific words in English, Greek, and other languages. For instance, take the word baffle. You can say, the problem baffled him. And you know exactly what that means. It confused him. But you can also use the word baffle to refer to something that mutes something else, like the baffle of a musical loudspeaker. So the function of the baffle is so that the bass comes through more clearly. See the difference? Many examples of that sort could be cited. In any case, it is remarkable that two words that occur in the outstanding vocabulary of Gnostic mythology occur also in these 6 verses. So now let's conclude by making a quick review of the features of the operating system of the great beast. First of all, the operating system has to have a handler, a telestes. And what does the handler do? That's a human being, by the way, a creature that comes out of the land. Well, the handler first brings attention to the world of the presence of the great beast, the living earth, and shows the world how to recognize and revere the power of the earth, which is your local ground source from which comes your life and everything that you experience as a living animal, not only your biological life, but your psychic life as well, your soul life, some would say. So the work of the handler begins with that act of recognition. There's another detail that comes up twice in these verses. It's a reference to one of the heads, one of the 7 heads being wounded, and yet the beast lives. So why is there a reference to one of the 7 heads being wounded? Now, I can't adequately go into that right now, but I'll point out something quite important. If you are one, whoever, who recognizes the presence of the local source of life in the earth, and you calculate the number of the beast, there is another way to calculate it. There are several ways. It's 6 plus 6 plus 6. Okay, obviously, been there, done that. It's also 10 horns, 7 heads, and 1, the scarlet woman. That adds to 18. But it can be broken down even more precisely at the structure, the dynamic structure of the operating tool, the icon. So it can be broken down in this way. 10 plus 5 plus 2 plus 1. Now each of those units refers specifically to the structure of the icon. So you break the 7 down into 5 plus 2. That begs the question, where is the wounded head? And what does it signify? There are 7 heads. Which of the 7 is wounded? How and why? And how has it been healed so that the beast continues to live? Well, specifically, in the construct, there are 2 points or buttons. These buttons on the operating app represent telluric frequencies or powers streaming from the Mother Earth. And another way to calculate that system is to say that there are 16 frequencies, discrete frequencies coming from the Earth, which are real. They are acoustic frequencies. Now, what are the remaining actions of the lesser beast who operates the power of the great beast? Well, the text says about bringing fire down from heaven. That refers specifically to commanding electricity, atmospheric electricity. Have you note, by the way, that the ability to control the weather, cause storms or rain, is traditionally attributed to shamans in many cultures around the world. And obviously, the operator of the OS is a kind of shaman. Gnostics were shamans. You find the Greek word semia, which is the root of the word semiology, and it means a sign or omen. So what happens in operating the system is that the operator is able to detect signs and omens which are coming from the ground source, and also able to transmit signs and omens. Again, in all indigenous cultures of the past, the shaman had the powers of divination, mantique. So celestial mantique was the reading of the signs in the sky, such as the phases of the moon. Many other forms of mantique were demonstrated lavishly in ancient texts and among some surviving indigenous peoples today. That is to say, reading the signs of nature, the flight of birds, the flow of water, the arrival of a ladybug on your hand, the flight of dragonflies. Countless examples of the signs and omens commanded by the lesser beast. The text says, in translation, that the handler gives life to the icon. It uses the Greek word pneuma, which is often translated as spirit. But I think life is a better translation in this case. So How does the handler give life to the icon? Well, the icon already has life in an extraordinary way, as I've already explained. And the handler joins his or her life force, the very vital power of the body, as well as the psychic powers of the soul and spirit, and joins them co-dynamically with the powers of the icon and, by extension, the powers of the great beast. This is actually how the operating system works, and you don't have to take my word on it. You can use it. Certain people do, routinely. Finally, 2 more points, which are specific in this passage. The handler gives to the icon the power to speak. Now, I've pointed out the different ways of computing the 18 modalities of the planetary animal mother, and they're numbered. Number 16 is the blue point in the icon, and that is the intercom. So all in all, the tool for the operating system can be called a transceiver, meaning that with this tool, you both receive and send to the mother source. But additionally, it has a special feature in the center, a little below center, which is the intercom. So the icon can transmit through language, and the users can transmit through the icon. It is, in fact, an integrated telepathic system. It has that function. That's the 16th modality. And finally, most outrageously, it does say this. I am not making it up. It says that the lesser beast uses the icon to kill. Now, this again is nothing new. If you look at the primary qualification of a shaman in any culture, there are 2 basic abilities the shaman must prove. First, the ability to go into the nahual, or the supernatural, beyond the border of ordinary awareness, and to return and bring to the world what was discovered in the nahual. Incorporated into that ability are 2 other capacities, so there are really 3. One of them is the shaman heals. Really, nobody heals. It's the earth that heals through the shaman. And second, shamans have the ability to kill. And traditionally, they spend a hell of a lot of time working with that power. So you hear stories coming out of the Amazon or whatever of various tribes like the Shipibo or the Hivaro, who spend a lot of time sending magic darts back and forth and having shamanic battles. And it's nothing new, really. But when it's incorporated into this power system, it is something new. It is something of the now and the future. Although you can compare it to shamanism in the past, in a way there's no comparison, because it excels and outscales any previous system of shamanic practice. So having come to the end of that review, we, together, if you can stick with it, reach the grand conclusion. And that comes in the form of a question. Why is the operator of the great beast like a lamb? And why does it have 2 horns? Now again, that is a question that could not possibly be answered by anyone who is indoctrinated and mind-controlled by Judeo-Christian religion or Islam or Hinduism or Buddhism or any other religion in the world. What Sophrades interpolated into the visions of the mad monk was intended to be read over time by those whoever had the power and the faculties to read it, and not to anyone else. But once it has been read and decoded, it becomes knowledge available in the world at large, and that is now. Like a lamb. Well, what does a lamb look like? Well, it's soft and fluffy and white. So what is soft and fluffy and white to a Gnostic? Well, that would be something called the organic light. The organic light is the naked body of the earth. When you see the Earth Mother, Sophia, who did not create this planet, she turned into it, you see her garments, her raiment, her clothing. All of nature is her clothing. When you encounter her naked, you see her primary substance body, which is a mass of organic light, which does appear to be foam-like or fluffy in a way. And it is, of course, white, hence the Roman or Latin name, or is it the Greek name, for the white goddess, Leucothea. Now, the handler then is someone who sees that naked presence. That explains how the handler is like a lamb. What about the two horns? Well, look again at the elegant and commanding figure of Sophrades. How could she do what she did? How could she, in a benevolent way, manipulate the dementia of this monk? She did it using two faculties, two skills. I specified what they were. And I submit to you that only someone who can manage these same two skills in an impeccable way is qualified to handle the operating system. These skills are the two horns of the Lamb. And they are the power of reason and the power of imagination. Enough said, and I'll be seeing you in the beauty to come.